Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the work session of the Board of Trustees, April 9th, 2025. It is calling the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. Clerk Perillo, would you please confirm the presence of a quorum?
Thank you. Mayor Shepro?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Giuliano?
Here.
Thank you. Trustee Laux?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Hill?
Here.
Thank you. Trustee Ugrinsky?
Present.
Thank you. I would like to note that Attorney Moran and Treasurer Gafka are with us as well, Mayor.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, will we all stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Every time I look at that flag, I think about the JCAP grant.
Yes.
Now,
Now,
in which everyone will learn about in a little bit. And Sylvia gives her report. Clerk Perillo, are there any announcements that you'd like to make?
Mayor, there are two. The first one is that our next Village Board of Trustees meeting is an agenda meeting that will be held at 6:00 p.m. on the 30th of this month. The second is that we received a notice of public hearing from the town of Brookhaven, setting a public hearing on an amended restrictive covenant application for Setauket Meadows in the Woods in East Setauket. The public hearing will be held on April 10th at 5:30 p.m. at the Brookhaven Town Auditorium.
Tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and what's next up on our agenda?
Next up is executive session. We have a little bit of a change in the agenda this evening. Our public hearing for the budget was noticed specifically for 6:00 p.m. to allow workers and commuters to join us more easily. So we'll break into executive session, have our abbreviated reports, and then return and end with our budget hearing.
Sounds good. Do we have a motion?
Second.
All in favor of going into executive session?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. May I have a motion, please, at 6:27 to close executive session? Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, now we're jumping right into our monthly reports. I am going to start by asking Director of the Planning Department and Building Department, Andy Freeling, to come up and to introduce one of his new employees who joined us recently, Dan Russo, so the board, we wanted to introduce the board to this new employee. He's going to be very impactful in the department, and just wanted you guys to meet him. So, Andy? Andy, I really want you to come and sit and talk to the board. You don't need to stand in front of that. This is just a work session. There was a chair there for you a minute ago. No. Public hearing will be after the board reports. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening.
Dan, do you
I
want
wanted
to
to
bring a
an-
chair up too? Come on up.
I'm sorry? Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to introduce a new employee in the Department of Building and Planning, Daniel Gross. Dan comes to us after doing a tour of duty in the town of East Hampton as a senior planner. So Dan is coming here as our senior planner. So he's been here since, not this Monday, but last Monday, and dove right in and has been helping us prepare for the planning board meeting tomorrow evening. So maybe Dan could give you a little bit of background on himself and some of the experience that you might have had
Sure,
before
yeah.
you came to the
I don't mind
village.
doing it. Sure. Well, yeah, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. And again, thank you again for the opportunity to be able to speak tonight and be here with the village of Port Jefferson. Yeah, I guess brief background about myself. So I'm a Long Island native, grew up here in East Bridges, New York, and I still live there now. In terms of my, I guess, professional career, I actually began a little bit of a different kind of background where I went in a graduate degree program at Binghamton University. I was there doing as part of a revitalization initiative with the Village of Johnson City, New York, working on a bunch of stuff like economic development stuff, GIS work, a bunch of data analysis with them, and some introductory stuff into the planning world. But as Andy said, for the last 2 years, coming right from that program, I ended up getting a job with East Hampton Town doing similar work to here, where I was the senior planner, doing a lot of things like site plan analysis, doing things with the zoning board and a bunch of review of that nature, but also working on some unique projects where we did some potential changes to the code to do growth management issues and looking at house sizes and gross floor area requirements and kind of how to manage a lot, the development going on out there. So, again, I'm incredibly excited to be here. Obviously, my role is very growing and involved here, and as I learned the code and a lot of things to adapt and what best suits the community here. But again, thank you again for this opportunity. So
Yeah, you hit the ground running, right? You're preparing for a planning board meeting of a very full agenda.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Thank
So
you.
we relied on his experience and just handed him files and said, go. So, and I'm pleased to report that Dan is an excellent addition to our department.
Great.
And we're looking forward to working with
All
Dan
right,
for a
good.
long time.
The other reason I asked Andy to come and speak with the board tonight was to kind of explain some code changes that he is recommending based on his work here for the past, I don't know, how many months now?
Over a year and
Well.
3+ months or so.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
quite a few months. And you've seen some things, you've experienced some circumstances, and now he's coming to this board with some discussion and recommendations that I'm sure he'd like us to consider moving into resolution legislation kind of thing. So,
Right. So as the mayor indicated, we've been processing applications, we've been giving approvals, and we've been seeing some things that some folks have mentioned to us and some things that we've noticed that could use some revisions and refinement, mainly to contemporize our regulatory processes, to cut some red tape out of some of the things we do, along the same lines, improving the efficiency of the department and expediting reviews and approvals for our residents and our business people. So that was the mindset when we went into looking at some of these things. The first thing, something you've been familiar with, I've been talking to the board about parking stall demand reduction. I would like to introduce a small paragraph into our code to allow the zoning and the planning boards the tool to use when they review parking shortfalls. We were using it as an approach to addressing some of the legacy vacant buildings that we have that might have had some credited in the past. We were working with them, and some members of the boards had indicated that they would feel more comfortable using this tool if it was codified. So we're going to come forward and recommend an amendment to Section 250.27B. And as I have mentioned before, what we're really trying to do is to create a nexus or a connection between forgiven parking stall requirements and public benefits to the village. So that is the intent of that amendment. So the department has been working with the planning board, working with other members to come up with that recommendation. So I'd like to put that through when convenient for the board. We also took a look through a committee that was formed way back in last year on long and short-term rental codes, beginning with Section 205. We had a committee that worked on that, and some of the core members, and a lot of members came and went, but some of the most consistent members were Michael Mard and Jonas Sinclair, Kathleen Acker, Tom Daly, Dan Tarantino, and there were others that, like I said, came and provided input and then missed a meeting or two and then came back. We're basically looking at the long-term, the short-term, accessory apartments and bed and breakfasts in our reviews. And the committee had made some recommendations. With regard to the long-term housing, rental housing, that's mainly detached single-family or two-family buildings. The committee didn't find much to say about the code with regard to regulating long-term rentals, so they made no recommendations to that. They felt that was a good code. The short-term rentals, When we talked about short-term rentals, they were focused mostly on things like Airbnbs. It was the committee's recommendation that no short-term rentals should be allowed in the Incorporated Village of Port Jefferson, and short-term rental being defined as less than or equal to 29 days. And that did capture, or would capture, most of the marketing that's done by Airbnb, Verbio, HomeAway, those types of organizations that advertise for short-term rental. So that would be an amendment to Section 205(3)A, prohibiting short-term rentals as defined. The committee,
Can I ask, or do you want to go through everything, or can we jump in
that's-
with questions? Is it specific to homes that are purchased with the sole intent of being short-term rentals, or can, like, if my partner and I go away for the weekend, can we rent out our house?
I would think
Because
that would-
those should be,
I think that would apply to anything that's a rental less than 29 days.
okay. Well, I think this board should consider the difference
Why,
between
why,
those two.
why 29?
The committee, we have hotel and motel units that rent for less than 29 days, so the committee wanted to separate the definitions.
Again,
They kicked around a lot, and I think that,
the standard is, right, arbitrary and capricious, right?
yes,
Why not 27?
that's a good question.
I know, that's why I sit here.
There was deliberation, there was discussions on it. They had a reason for 29 days, I can't recall what it was.
Well, these are things, Mayor, what I would recommend, let him make his presentation and maybe I'll schedule a meeting with, because I made some notes already that legally there's some issues with what we're
Okay.
attempting to do here.
Okay.
Maybe I can meet with him to discuss the legal things, based on relevant, case law and decisions, and maybe work around the language to meet the intent of the committee, but do it in a fashion that's legal,
Thank you.
or survive constitutional
That's
muster.
progress.
That's progress. We did not, in some of the recommendations, some of the code sections, we actually tried to amend. We didn't try to amend this, we left that up to you. So we'll have those discussions, I appreciate that. So that was short-term. Accessory apartments, the committee looked at accessory apartments, and they believe that accessory apartments should be permitted in all residential zones. They suggested that an accessory apartment advisory committee be formed in order to make the process smooth and efficient. They recommended that the accessory apartment be administered by the Building and Planning Department and issued by the building inspector, and that would require a new section to 205 of the Village Code.
What would be the role of the committee?
To review the requests of the accessory apartments and to, a lot of those apartments are gonna come in pre-existing buildings, things like that, and just to assist with the review of that and the neighborhood character, things like that would.
So you're creating a board, an accessory apartment review
An
board?
accessory committee, yeah, an
Is
advisory.
it a special permit that if they meet the criteria, you have to give it?
No. No, it's,
And we should meet.
yeah.
Can you
Okay.
define accessory apartment for me? Just one?
It is an accessory rental unit.
So is that like a mother-daughter, like somebody wants their
Right,
parents moving in?
Right, so you can have your parents move in right now, as long as you don't provide kitchen and those types of things. You can have accessory apartments for family.
Trustee
What
Yurginski,
you
it's
can't-
it's a separate dwelling unit located within the principal dwelling, usually limited by square footage, number of bedrooms, and,
So it contains a kitchen
and the need for off-street parking, so not overburden the streets. There's also some saturation requirements that should go along with that. But the actual definition is an accessory to the principal dwelling located within, right? That is usually, like I said, limited by number of bedrooms, limited by square footage, that type of thing.
So it must include a kitchen, or it must
Well,
include
again, it's a
That's the
separate
intent.
dwelling unit. When you define a dwelling unit
Okay,
is
yeah.
something you could live in with, that has all the plumbing, yep.
one, yeah, okay.
So those were the recommendations of the committee, knowing that we would be working with the village attorney on these things to perfect them so they could be made ripe for your deliberations. The third item that the committee reviewed was bed and breakfast. I see that I put here rental code committee. I'm not quite sure that they recommended the rental code committee. Let me go back on that. But with regard to bed and breakfast, the bed and breakfast code was fine the way the committee looked at it. They would like to add the ability to have a detached accessory guest unit for bed and breakfast. And that accessory unit, again, as the village attorney had alluded to, it's going to meet all the requirements of an accessory apartment, except that no cooking facilities would be permitted. So they're allowing an off-building accessory unit. And again, these are bullet points, not going into a lot of detail, but the last thing that the department reviewed and has been discussing with the planning board and other boards is the seasonal outdoor dining code. We're looking to, again, to make it more efficient, to make it, to expedite those types of reviews. So we would amend 250-58 of the village code and move it to an administrative approval by the Department of Building and Planning. And in addition to that, we have had some requests for seasonal outdoor dining structures. So we took a look at seasonal outdoor dining structures around the area, New York City, some other areas, and made recommendations to made a recommendation to allow seasonal outdoor dining structures, and then there's a whole bunch in their recommendations on how that could be done. And again, I would work with the village attorney on that and make it ripe for your review.
All right.
So that's what we've been looking at now. There are other code sections that we are looking at and would like to make some recommendations on changing, but this has been a bucket full so far, so those are in the next wave of recommendations.
Okay. So next step is set a meeting with the village attorney
Yes.
and go through the detailed recommendations and legal ramifications. Okay,
Okay,
great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So I'm going to go to monthly reports, and I'm going to ask that Trustee Laux begin.
Okay, I'll start with the schools. Kyle and I attended a meeting with the Port Jeff school officials about the upcoming steeplechase track meet. It's being held on April 16th. It's coming up real quick. Discussions included the complete organization and preparation for this event. As we all are aware, this event has presented some problems in the past, except for last year. It was a pretty huge success, but we did have a problem last year that was not addressed, and that's the spectator parking. At the present time, there are 28 schools signed up for this event, and that's going to bring quite a volume of vehicles into the area around the track. So the people that we met with up at the school came up with an idea of perhaps just for that day, we could have one side of the street parking on Longfellow, Hawthorne, and Emerson. Our code officers said that if they get enough notice on that, they could get that done real quick. They have the parking signs ready to go. If we could get permission to do that, it would be very helpful up in that area.
Are we
So they
letting
limit
people
parking
know?
on one side, is that the idea?
We're going to eliminate, or we're going to ask permission to eliminate parking on one side of the street just for that day.
Right.
Spectators are going to be directed into the main parking lot once one side of that street is filled up. The parking lot adjacent to the school where the faculty now parks, all of the buses are going to go directly into that parking lot. No buses will be going up to the track, so there'll be no problem with buses being parked up there like they were in the past. And that will be just for the one day, obviously. So if we could if we could go ahead with that, I'd like to be able to tell Anthony that he could go forward with it. Moving on to recreation in the village center, our skating is finished. We finished up on March 9th. 12,747 skaters. Brought in $100,470 in revenue from the skating rink. We have 2 art shows on exhibit over there right now. The Port Jefferson School exhibit is on the 2nd floor. The wet painting studio group is up on the 3rd floor. I would encourage everyone to take the time to look at these 2 exhibits. I took a look at the school exhibit. I think some of those should be up on the 3rd floor. We've got some very talented youngsters over at the school, and some of those art exhibits are really worthwhile to look at. During the month of March, we had 8,500 people, 8,511 people to be exact, visit through the village center. At the present time, we're signing up vendors for the Summers Farmers Market. We have 15 vendors signed in. I'm not sure how much space we're going to have over there, but if there are people out there that want to get in, I suggest you get up there quickly. We're running free senior citizen programs every Wednesday and Thursday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Transportation to these programs are free for village residents. I want to thank the town of Brookhaven, by the way, for the grant which makes this program available to us. The center is looking for night managers. If you're interested, contact Renee up at the center. We need 2 night managers. We're still looking for lifeguards and camp counselors. If anyone out there has youngsters coming from college for the summer, we still have some openings. The men's softball league begins on April 14th. That's this week, coming up this week. The women are going to begin their league on May 7th. We're still looking for a couple of teams. They can register through the website on RecPro, or they can email Renee Lemmerman directly at rlemmerman@portjeff.com. We need 1 men's team, and we could use a couple of more teams for the gals to play also. A little news from the country club. We're extremely happy to announce that we have a new food and beverage operator up at the club. Lessings is the name of the organization. I'm sure everyone has heard of this company. They've been in business for decades. They operate at numerous golf clubs throughout Long Island. They're going to be taking over the country club. We're very confident and excited about this development as they come to us in a very positive and professional reputation. The golf course opened on March 29th, Saturday. We did have a nice day Saturday. There are 172 rounds of golf were played on that day. The weather the next couple of days was not so nice, but we still got in another 70 some odd rounds of golf. The course is in excellent shape, thanks to Pat and Jeff and the entire crew. The event calendar, the tournament schedule, the clinic schedule, and the Pro Shop staff is pretty much all in place. I want to thank Jake and Larry for that. As of today, this morning at 11:30, we had 494 members that have paid. Our goal is 550. I'm pretty sure I told Stephen we picked up 10 today, so we only got 5 more days to go. At 10 a day, we'll be there. Memberships are still available. If you were a member last year, you have been billed. You need to go into the membership office and pay that bill. Any new person interested in joining needs to stop by the Pro Shop If you're not sure about joining, we can give you a tour of the facility and maybe even play a few holes to see if you like the golf course. You'll
Not
find, you'll find no better golf course.
a few.
A few, 18. You won't find a better golf course for a better price anywhere on Long Island. For those members that have signed up, the minimum cards are in the works. They should be here by the weekend.
Tomorrow.
Okay, we'll be here tomorrow. In the meantime, well, you don't have time for this, but you'll be getting a 15% discount at the turn for your food and beverages. This is a courtesy for your patients. We're presently working on a new member's handbook. This booklet is going to contain all of the information needed to make your club experience positive and enjoyable. When this handbook is finished, you will be notified and it will be available to you on your website. And that's all I have.
Stan, when's the next CCMAC meeting?
It's the third Tuesday of the month.
That's a week from,
Whatever that,
it's a week from
whatever that
yesterday?
date is, yeah. 6 o'clock in the all-purpose room up at the country club.
Okay.
And we did have a Board of Governors meeting on Monday night. An excellent meeting. It was, Stephen was there and presented some financial work for us, answered a lot of questions. It was the first meeting that I attended in full. I'm quite impressed with the operation of the meeting. The agenda was well-written, and I think the meeting was quite positive and productive.
Good. Just at that meeting, I'll just chime in a little bit. I just wanted to, I let the Board of Governors know that the Long Island Sound Study, Sea Grant, and Cornell Cooperative have approved the village's grant application for reclamation of water. The watershed that comes off of Old Homestead Road, Sands Lane, Soundview, Cove, and Landing all pour into that recharge basin that
Right.
let go a couple of years ago. And that was repaired and is continuing to be repaired. And there's also a whole lot of water coming off the sluiceway that's behind the houses and in between the houses and the golf course. That all funnels into that recharge basin. And a proposal for a grant was put in with Lisa Matos' help and also the help of our consulting engineers, Hayduck, and also the help of the firm that was brought in a couple of years ago to do the hydrologic study, P.W. Grosser, who also applied for a grant several years ago, a congressional grant, which didn't get approved. But this one got approved, and it's worth about $115,000 to do the study, to do the preliminary work, to get to a point where we might be able to apply for a construction grant. So that really was a brainchild of not mine, but a bunch of other people. And Stan was one of those people. Rebecca Cassay was one of those people. Also, and P.W. Grosser, I think, was, very instrumental in coming together with some of those ideas. We just took that information that was prepared already, repackaged it, applied for the grant, and the grant was approved. So this is a grant that is, and the Board of Governors was pretty jazzed about hearing that, and Pat Sullivan's been asking for this for a long time. It's called the Pond Project, basically.
No, it's excellent news because we have a DEC limitation on the amount of water we can use on that golf course. And every storm that we have, there's a concrete spillway that runs down along hole number 8. It's just full of water, and that water is just, we're looking at that water and say, boy, we could capture that water. because the limitation that the DC put on us is really not enough to keep the golf course the way we want to keep it, which is green.
So this is an interesting grant because Cornell Cooperative and Sea Grant and LIS do all the heavy lifting. They do the RFP, they award the project, and basically I think they're the contractor and we're sub. So it'll be interesting. It's kind of exciting and it'll be very interesting. The RFPs are scheduled to go out, I think, towards the end of the spring, late spring, early summer. So just looking forward to that. Okay. Thank you, Stan.
Do we need a motion for the streets or no? Okay.
Okay. Trustee Giuliano, you want to go?
Sure. All right, so starting out with DPW. Highlights on DPW, we had a large rain event and windstorm event on March 5th. DPW staff cleared out catch basins village-wide in preparation for this rainfall. It was estimated that we had about 1.5 inches of rain on that day. A tree fell on Jefferson Landing Circle. It was partially blocking one lane of travel, and it was cleared back to the residents' property line. They've been doing road work and drainage repairs. They installed asphalt berms across driveways and across property lines at the request of residents. That's in place of curbing, and it helps with drainage. DPW staff noticed a sinkhole forming at the catch basin at the intersection of Eastgate and Soundview. They cut open the road, inspected it, did a repair so that it wouldn't be a hazard to the roadway. They're going to be looking into it. The drain has to be completely overhauled in the future, but it's completed now, so it's passable. There was another event, another sinkhole on Belterre Road. DPW staff they noticed that, they repaired it. It was in front of 644 Belterre Road. And upon inspection, the basin support ring was found to be rotten and cracked. Loose brick and mortar were also found. Crews repaired the ring, replaced the bricks, mortar, and backfilled the drain. On East Broadway, they noticed another sinkhole. As a matter of fact, that was just repaired, I believe, today. That was right at the corner of, oh no, that was a couple of days ago, I'm sorry. Another sinkhole that they noticed, that they sent out the VACCON to take care of the waters and to allow the setting of the concrete, and they repaired it. They've been doing street signage repairs and replacement on numerous locations. They've been marking roads and road painting. They refinished yellow lines along East Broadway where the lines were barely visible. They've been doing a lot of work in the shop, getting equipment ready for the upcoming spring season. And the VACCON, which is the vacuum, large vacuum machine that cleans the drains, has been out, and they've been going out and cleaning the debris and silt from the drains on numerous drains in the streets. So that's DPW. Parks. Village Center, the Parks Department, Village Center, they cut down ivy and removed leaves, installed new farmers market signage. They painted the bathroom walls and the floors at Rocketship Park. Barnum Lot was cleaned, garden beds around the lot were cleaned up, and the trees were trimmed. East Beach performed spring cleanup, removed sand from sidewalks also. The pavilion over at East Beach is going to, I believe they were going to start the repair today, or sometime this week. I believe they were going to start the roof repair on that structure. They've been prepping the mowers and the equipment for the upcoming spring season, sharpening the blades and things. And we talked about it at the department head meeting. There's a lot that goes into this. Everybody looks and says, "Oh, it looks nice." It's they've done a good job, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's a lot of prep and long hours and everything. So they've been working on that. Tree committee. We have our Arbor Day celebration, the second annual Arbor Day celebration, coming up on April 23rd, which is a Wednesday, from 5 to 6. It's going to be in front of Village Hall here. They're going to be planting a tree and raising the Tree City USA flag that we received. So the village is now considered a Tree City USA. So we have a lot of people coming to speak, and they will also be giving out numerous shrubs and little saplings to people that they want to, have native trees growing in their property. So
And we received thousands and thousands of tree care guides, right, from the state, remember? Oh, did you see those? No, you didn't see those. They came in when you were out. So there's like 2 very heavy boxes of.
Oh.
Yeah, Avril, I let Avril know, so
Okay.
she's aware, and, but they're very cool. I mean, they could go to the library, they could go to all
Absolutely.
different, we have different outlets that we can share them and get them distributed, because it's very informational,
yeah,
very good
yeah,
information.
it ties right into it, so that's perfect. Yeah.
It does, it's why, it's from the tree, it's from
Yeah.
Tree City people,
Yeah.
yeah.
And as far as the committee, coastal erosion, we had a meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, and there were 2 motions that they passed. They're supporting and I'll read it. Motion 1, to support trustee resolution authorizing funds to enable GEI to proceed with Phase 2 plan preparation to include comprehensive drainage control measures along with consideration for the existing septic system. After further discussion, the motion was modified to include specific concerns about addressing western drainage from the parking lot and the clearing done for the anticipated pickleball courts, which worsened the runoff and erosion problems to the west of the parking lot. And that motion was passed unanimously. And they made another motion that the trustees follow up on addressing the clubhouse safety as recommended by GEI in the most recent Q&A report that they gave us. And again, that was unanimously approved by the CCE.
Just to clarify, the commission's unanimously motioning to make recommendations to the board.
Right, it's
I
a
just
recommendation.
wanted- 'cause
Exactly, it's a
It
recommendation to the
reads
board.
like they are acting. So I just want to make sure that the proper vernacular is they agreed to make those recommendations to this board.
That's actually what happened.
Right,
Yeah,
just want to make sure.
yes.
It's clear for
Mhm.
people.
so noted,
Okay,
and that's my report.
that is, so just to piggyback on a couple of things, Bob, that you were talking about parks-wise, and the Erosion Commission identified an article, right, from, it's in Politico, it's in a
Right.
couple of publications about this brick grant. It's a federal grant, it's called a brick grant. I forget what the acronym stands for, but it said that the federal government is defunding these brick grants, select ones. And the question was, does this include the grants that we're working with? Our grants are not BRIC, B-R-I-C grants.
Good.
But that didn't, even so, I reached out to Congressman Lalota's office to ask if they could take a look at our contracts with FEMA to see if they will be impacted by any of this new activity. And and there's been ongoing back and forth. They asked for the contract numbers and whatnot. I provided them, and so they've reached out, and we should get an answer on that. Whether it's an answer that is yes or no, I'm not sure, but we'll get an answer from them, because it's an active correspondence. So I just wanted to, and I think I updated you on that, but I wanted to update this board on that, because it's been a topic of discussion in the world today. Also, with regard to DPW, a couple things. We have an RFP going out, is that correct, for the culvert cleanout?
Yes, ma'am. It will be noticed in next week's paper
Okay.
and in the contract report. It's already been sent to both places.
Very good. And this is a Suffolk County Jumpstart grant that we've talked about here before, but I just wanted this board to know that the RFP is going out, and so the work is going to start once it's awarded, and the board approves the contract award. And it also, we were able to determine that it also includes permitting with the DEC, costs of permitting with the DEC, and Mill Creek remediation east of Barnum. So I just wanted to make it very clear that I think it's, in discussions with GEI and HADUC, we're talking a lot about maintenance and budgeting for maintenance of these projects that, because and I might have said it here, I've said it in other locations, we can't look at these projects as one and done. They have to be continually maintained, and they're easier to maintain by our own staff when they're maintained on a regular basis. And if they're not maintained on a regular basis, it has to be contracted out. So we're going to work with Department of Public Works and Parks to put together maintenance plans as recommended by our Public Works and our engineering firms. So the engineering firms that are working on it, or our consulting engineer. So this is something I've talked to the treasurer about, a real proactive budgeting for maintenance of projects that is not included in the grant. And also to apply for new grants, maybe from the Environmental Protection Agency, which funded the Mill Creek Walkway in the first place. And look for creative ways to fund this ongoing process. So that's something that I'll be speaking with Lisa about, and trying to identify some funding sources for the maintenance of DEC-type regulated projects. And then also just to have our DPW crews and parks crews actually proactively maintain these walls that are being installed. So the wall down on East Beach parking lot has eroded. It's a steel structure. I'm looking at Stephen. I'm not asking you if it's a steel structure. I'm sorry. I don't expect an answer, but it has rusted, and had it been maintained on a regular basis with just a treatment of special material to treat it, there is an implication for what material does treat these materials. That's no longer an option. Now we have to sandblast it. We're getting costs from DPW for sandblasting because it's definitely hazardous right now, the way it is. I'm sorry if that's prior notice, but it is. So, Dave's frowning. Anyway, so we're working on that. We'll address it before the beach season opens, and but we will also work very hard to maintain the lower toe wall, which requires maintenance, and all the material that it goes into that, and then also the upper wall. So, Stephen, now it's on record that I have asked you to do that. Yes, ma'am. Budgeting. Thank you. And then one other park-related issue, and that is this, it was the board, last year's board, that voted to approve the dedication naming of Caroline Avenue Field to become Haywood Park again, because it originally was Haywood Park. And I don't know when it became Haywood Park, but there was a sign before Barnum lot was built and the house that was there was demolished. There was a sign that said Haywood Park. It's also, the ball field is dedicated to Joe Erland, the former trustee and fire department chief that was very engaged in this community. And so the ball field is Joe Erland Field. The park will be named Haywood Park. So it will be Joe Erland Field at Haywood Park. I met with the family. I met with Pete Haywood, who lives up in Swassa Park, and his daughter, Randy French, and they had spoken with their family to identify a date for the dedication, and they selected May 3rd. So that's a Saturday, and I'm just asking you all to put it on your calendars. We don't have a time set certain yet, but I'm just asking you to put it on your calendars. And just a reiteration of some of the facts that we've been presented, and Chris Ryan, our village historian, is pulling together information about this property, which Harry Haywood dedicated to the village, Caroline Avenue Field, which was a marsh when it was originally dedicated. So he dedicated Caroline Avenue Field. to the village. He also dedicated the land that is now the property of the school district where the football field and the baseball field are located. So Harry Haywood dedicated many, many acres of land to the benefit of residents and district people in the school district, kids who go to school in the district, teachers, et cetera. So that was years ago. We're trying to get a real timeline together. Harry Haywood also developed Sawassa Park. So he was a developer as well. So there's so much impact that this family has had on this community, and this is going to be our way of kind of like telling that story and recognizing that family and trying to, keep their name in our memory into perpetuity, because it was pretty impressive donations for someone to give to our community. Anyway, May 3rd. So, and then the Antiques and Garden Show. So just mention that's at the Village Center on May 4th, and 3rd and 4th, I think, Saturday and Sunday. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but that means the farmer's market's going to be displaced over to the front of the Village Hall, which was sort of experimented with last year. We're going to do it again this year, and the farmer's market manager feels that's a really good idea. And also, the farmer's market manager is now working with the community garden folks. Isabel Brahaney Schaefer, who's on the Parks and Recreation Committee, is working with Melissa Dunstetter to sort of make the most out of the proceeds, the vegetables and the growth of the community garden that is underutilized or overgrown or unattended, to bring it over to the farmer's market and figure out a way how to either package it and sell it and give the proceeds to a food
pantry, food bank.
correct pantry, or raise money for that, or I don't know. They're going to figure out some ideas, and I'm sure they'll bring it up at the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council. And if they don't, I highly suggest that you ask them to, because it's going to be a really good collaboration. Okay. One more DPW thing. We have the Willis Avenue survey in hand, so I just want to put that on everybody's radar, and we haven't quite looked at it fully yet.
I began to look at it. I think I need some clarification from Bob about how he monumented it. He did an offset, I think, because we had issues with the property.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have it, which is a good first step in the right direction. So
Yeah.
more to come.
Okay, thank you. All right, that wasn't my report, but that was me piggybacking off of yours. So, Kyle, do you want to?
Thank you. Code enforcement update. The code enforcement supervisors attended the Port Jeff Civic Association in March. Code issued 139 parking tickets in March, which was last month. Also, if you've been looking at the numbers, this is an improvement over recent history. So thank you very much for, righting the ship, I'd say. And then the village has a public access AED program, and one of the things that the new code enforcement leadership team did was make sure that was all above board and being attended to, which it is. Deputy Chief Presta from Port Jeff EMS inspected all of the AEDs, and going forward, Supervisor Cooper is going to be the lead on that, who will make sure that everything is good. And for folks at home, the village has 11 AEDs, and then during the summer season, there's 13 at the beaches. So they're at Village Hall, they're at the Village Center, some of the other municipal buildings, and then also at the beaches. So hopefully you never need to learn any more than that, but they are there.
Yeah, hopefully they never get used.
Yeah.
But they're fun.
And then they're also filling vacancies in the code enforcement team right now. So they're doing about interviewing 11 candidates as we speak. And then on Monday, the Public Safety Advisory Committee met. One of the things that Supervisor Cooper brought up was a possible code change or addition related to e-bikes and scooters, which are more popular than ever, and just prohibiting their use on our sidewalks. So it's something that he brought up to the council, and they were very receptive to that idea. So I think we're going to try to move forward on that for this season.
He and I discussed that portion of the code today, actually, which I believe is 131:18. And so he's looking into that. It would appear that it's more expansive than we first thought. So he'll get back to the council on that.
Would it have to specifically state that it's a powered electric vehicle? Or-
Definitions matter, right?
Yeah,
Definitions matter. A bicycle's a bicycle, right? If it's not defined in the code, which I'm sure it's not, it defers to a common law definition or a acceptable dictionary definition, and I'm sure that it differs from that of an e-bike or electric scooter. It's not as, I believe, the clerk is correct, it's not as simple
it can be
as.
challenged if we
It's
don't
not
address
as,
it.
it's not as simple as it may seem.
Yeah, okay.
And then it never is, yeah. The Public Safety Advisory Council also endorsed the recommendations that we got from the Port Jeff Civic Association's walkability group. And those are largely modeled after, pretty much mirror the HIDIC recommendations.
Okay.
So we can,
start talking to
looking at
DPW
those.
about implementing those.
mhm.
Because they're pretty much relatively light lifts, like, doesn't require even necessary, it can just be DPW addressing lining the street in a
Mhm.
certain area to create a walking, like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's look, you want to take a look at that? Okay. Can I ask Kyle if there's, any progress on the call?
Yes, we have another version. I'll actually send this one out to you.
Okay.
I'm going to do it during our meeting, so I don't forget.
Okay, all right, thank you. And we talked about, we had, public comment a couple of meetings ago about the walkway between Arlington and Bayview Terrace and that state-owned sidewalk area. And we had talked about maybe reaching out to Representative Cassay, the assembly person, to see if there's any state way to get the state to address that issue. Has anything progressed there, or do we need to?
Yeah, progressed, I'd say no. But we did get, Assemblymember Cassay's office, they had met with DOT. We didn't really get a great answer from them on that. They kind of referred to
Shocker.
I know. They referred to old letters that they had sent years ago during when Mayor Garant was still mayor, and I'll send that letter around so everyone has it, but it was a weird thing where they wanted to make Bayview Terrace one way, and I called up Margot to see if she remembered anything about it. She said there wasn't a lot of interest from the residents there to change that, and this was not said in the letter, but just putting the tea leaves together, it seemed like the state was only interested in doing this if they kind of resolved the major issue at Bayview.
The one way?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's the only thing that made sense to me, and that's speculative, but I couldn't understand why it would be part of the conversation if it wasn't sort of the linchpin issue.
Maybe that would be a thing now.
Maybe, yeah, but it seemed like the state had never an intention to do that spit of sidewalk, even though it clearly starts on Beach Street and goes nowhere for 2 blocks. So it is just a strange thing. And then where they got to was more signage for the bike lane that's there, and a sign that's mind pedestrians, I think, is also included. So it was not the most exciting response, but at least it's another bit of information.
Yeah.
So I'll send that around.
I remember there was a time that they had proposed closing the entrance there, and the state was against it. They wouldn't allow that.
Making it one-way
Maybe
north? Was it north? Because coming south, it's a real problem, right?
Yeah, maybe one way isn't the best description, but the access to 25A, to close that off.
Close
So
that
cars would have to
access.
go around.
Yeah, that's.
So you can go up and down the street, you just couldn't go
I
through.
wonder if that would be,
That was discussed, and the state was against it.
Okay, so then I am
Oh.
interpreting it differently then, or wrong.
really?
Yeah. Yeah, if I remember that correctly, Steve was pushing for that. He wanted to try to have
Close that.
had that closed so that trucks
Or
couldn't.
regrade it.
Yeah, but looking at it, it couldn't be regraded. So he said, if we close it, then you're not gonna have the problem. Trucks are getting stuck either way. And the state wouldn't allow it to be, because it hits a state road, the state has jurisdiction.
Yeah, remember 2 years ago when that bus got
Yeah.
stuck, like, right?
It happens quite often, yeah.
So what if the walkability, and I know that some of the folks that stood up at the meeting have been part of the discussions within the walkability group, but is there a way to get them to like really dig into this a little bit deeper and talk with people on the street, or is there, to see if there's interest in doing that, or just find out more information, because they will have recollections that we can't
Sure.
even assume. Want to work on that?
Yeah, we can check in with them. I mean, there's definitely a strong appetite for some people to get it done no matter what has to be done.
Yeah.
So we can keep running it down. I mean, I think it's worth doing because it connects that major
Yeah.
sidewalk.
Yeah.
Or that rest of, the rest of the village going up that road.
And maybe, at the risk of saying, maybe there's a grant for that, maybe there's a grant for everything, but maybe there is some sort of grant for that safety issue, because it is a huge safety
Yeah.
issue. Well, we have the picture of that bus
Mhm.
with kids on it,
Yeah.
so,
I mean, we can't even take the ambulances up and down that street.
Yeah, right?
So,
Yeah.
so,
yeah.
all right. Okay, thank you. And trustee Ugrinsky?
Yes, thank you. This has been, I don't know, I'd say a year of firsts. We did the 7-year audit of the Capitol, and we did our 2024, actuals audit. So this budget represents the first time that we are actually doing a budget, and we know exactly where we stand from a financial standpoint. It will also allow us, to do accurate financial reporting going forward. I think the treasurer's office has done a good job of, addressing some policy issues. So we've got our purchasing policies in place. We've got the segregation of duties in place. But we're getting to the point where we're wrapping up the fixed asset inventory, so we will be, again, for the first time in modern memory, in a situation where we can actually track our assets, everything from land and building down to cell phones. So that should enable, or maybe eliminate, let's call it shrinkage, and enable us to take advantage of financial things like depreciation on our financials. Why am I bringing that up right now, right? Because when the treasurer goes through the budget, this is going to be the first time that we are going to be able to enter the budget in our financial system by month in such a way that the department heads will be able to see where they're at every month. And, and it will allow them more autonomy in terms of how they're managing their department's funds. This is also kind of the first piece of sort of a longer-term forward look, because when I think about what we had to do, or what the treasurer technically had to do, in order to get us to where we are on the budget today, in terms of a balanced budget, in terms of not, breaking the tax cap, breaching the tax cap. That's really step one. After that, he's going to be focusing on the longer-term capital budget, because that spans years. And one of the things that the finance, the Budget and Finance Committee is going to start working on is also of a 3 to 5 year analysis of expected revenues as they relate to tax revenues, because we see those going down, right? Our goal is to have a revenue forecast that is multi-year, particularly as we're moving closer to the glide path. And also, this impacts things that were discussed earlier today, like ongoing project maintenance, right? A project doesn't just cost what the project costs, it costs what it's going to cost to maintain for the following years, right? And I'm excited because this is really our first time of being able to do that kind of a forward, multi-year forward look. And, just thrilled with the work that's been done, thrilled with the work that the Budget and Finance Committee is doing to help with all this heavy lifting. And I think we are going to be better positioned to at least understand what the trend is for the revenue, overall revenue of the village. Because we have to be concerned, right? Tax revenues in some cases are going down because of nonprofits buying up more property. There are additional apartment buildings going up, and I believe we will be in a better position to make decisions when somebody wants to build another apartment building, or whether we even should. So with that, I just want to thank the Budget and Finance Committee for all their hard work, but really, most of all, the Treasurer's Office and everybody that worked on this, and the department heads, because they have been an integral part of this process, really for the first time that anyone, it came up in a number of conversations, that like, wow, I have input now. So it's not just, I'm not just being given a number and said, here's your number, go.
And see you next year.
Well, I will say it again, all of this work can be very brittle if it's not continued properly. So it wouldn't take very long to dismantle all of this. And, I highlight that for everyone, not just this group, but as something that we all have to be vigilant about and matters to the future of our village and the services that we provide our residents, so across all of our departments. So that concludes my remarks, and I would like to give the floor to the next item, which I think is the budget. Unless there are questions.
Actually, we have a clerk's report, too. But I'm anxious to hear the presentation on the budget, too.
I
I'm
can't
really
help it. I'm
anxious.
so excited.
I should have picked you last, Zena, because then we should have planned it.
Really should.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. My bad.
I get so excited about this topic.
No. That would have been a great
Okay.
segue transition, but
So we'll
yes.
go for an abbreviated clerk's report then.
Well, that depends, so.
Starting with the court report, the court received $7,397.15 from the 2024-2025 grant, with thanks to Elizabeth Kidney, who every year is the force that provides us with what we're looking at. And in addition to that, we are painting and carpeting the hallways. outside and the stairwell. And in addition to that, we will be replacing flags and flagpoles in this room and purchasing new robes for the judges.
How does that make you feel,
Yay.
Attorney Moran?
I love it.
All right, good.
Warms my heart.
Thought so. Moving on to RFPs tomorrow at 2 o'clock, the RFP for the chemicals for the country club is due. So that will be happening tomorrow.
The bid opening, is that what you're saying?
I am.
Oh, okay.
And that should be, we should have, obviously, a recommendation for our April 30th agenda meeting.
Okay, good.
Okay? Election. We do have a separate page on our official website regarding the election for voters and for candidates. We do have packets available electronically and also in hard copy here in Village Hall. There were 2 very successful meetings with the Yacht Club, one with the mayor and myself and Dave Hubbard, who's now taking the reins as chairperson for the regatta upcoming in September. Planning for that is starting. The meeting after that is the meeting I attended, which is the first meeting about the regatta with the Yacht Club. And we thank them for these friendly and productive meetings that we've had. We're looking forward to an expanded engagement. We're going to more broadly represent the entire village. One of the ideas that came from one of the meetings was to assist by helping with full boat sponsorships. And by helping, we mean to use village website, village information, any way that we can help promote the event, but also to help put people together that could be helping each other. So we're very much looking forward to that.
And we also want representation on the judging panel
Yes,
because
Which we have asked for.
Mather keeps taking the trophy every single year. Which
we have asked
We
for.
don't know who the judges are.
So we asked for that. We are also working with the Yacht Club to help them update the brochure that they use to promote the regatta event. Something very exciting that they're doing this year is that they actually have a QR code. So that'll be,
And they're taking payment and they're taking reservations or registrations online,
yeah,
Yeah.
first time.
so.
And I'll be working together with Cynthia Court to make sure that we have one unified system for applications. So we're looking forward to that. There are 4 resolutions that need to be voted on this evening out of process with apologies, but because of time constraints. The first one is resolution number 01-40925. It's a resolution approving the following. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Port Jefferson hereby ratifies an agreement with Civil Service Employees Association, Inc., Local 1000, AFS-CME, AFL-CIO, regarding a stipend to be paid to an employee. May I have a motion for that, please? Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 02-40925 is a resolution ratifying the rehiring of Tom Courtney as a starter ranger at the Port Jefferson Country Club at an hourly wage rate of $18 per hour effective March 29th, 2025, and ratifying the rehiring of John Steiner as an outside services employee at the Port Jefferson Country Club at an hourly wage rate of $18 per hour effective March 29th, 2025. May I have a motion? Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 03-40925 is a resolution approving tasks 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the attached professional service contract amendment submitted by GEI Consultants, Inc. for design development, contractor solicitation, construction monitoring, and coordination meetings related to Phase 2 of the East Beach Bluff Stabilization Project. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
I'll just say, I've expressed my skepticism about the upper wall multiple times. I understand that we do need the plans to see what it's going to cost. But for me, I'm going to be voting no on this.
Did we take the vote?
Not
No.
yet.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we need a roll call vote?
Yes, if that question that met
Yes.
with silence.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe
Okay,
so.
roll call vote.
Okay, trustee Laux.
Aye.
Trustee Giuliano.
Aye.
Trustee Hill.
Nay.
Trustee Ugrinsky.
I'm going to vote no on this one.
Mayor, how would you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes 3-2. Resolution number 04-40925 is a resolution authorizing Treasurer Gafka to engage bond counsel for bond resolutions regarding the following grant projects: hazard mitigation planning, which is FEMA number DR 4480-0031, Suffolk County Jumpstart, Village Tennis Court Walkway through Suffolk Downtown Revitalization, and Village Tennis Court Walkway through CDBG, which is the Community Development Block Grant. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes my report unless there are questions.
One more announcement, maybe. The Mather sunscreen program?
We are working together with Mather to once again bring sunscreen to various kiosks free of charge to our residents, and we are happy to provide that and working closely with them, so that will be coming soon.
Different park placements, right?
Yes.
So, okay. All right, so,
Do you have a report?
I do. I'll try and speed through it.
Treasurer Gafka has a report too.
This is not why everybody's here for, I'm gonna hit the budget presentation.
Yeah.
So I'll go through this quickly. I reached out to the capital asset valuation team. I'm expecting this to be done by the end of this week, to have a report that I can distribute to the board. It's the first step. And then potentially work on, with our auditors and with the fixed asset people to see if there's any type of other presentation that needs to get made. But really looking forward to getting that fixed asset report and being able to add what we've done this year to it. So that's going to be a really positive step. It's going to be a really positive step for the audit. It'll get that material weakness off, and then we'll be able to have none of those marks against us for future audits once we have that report. Parking meters, we ordered new signs. I was told from Jarrett from DPW, and thanks to him for all the hard work, that those new signs are now up. We kind of homogenized the signs to be multi-year and not just 1 year, in coordination with the recommendations previously passed by the board to maintain rates and maintain the hours for 3 years. So all of those signs are up. We have plenty in reserve, so as they fade, we can replace. So I'm really excited about that. Just as a reminder, the new parking rates go into effect April 15th and moving forward through October 14th. And that'll be $1 an hour Monday through Thursday during 12 to 8, and $3 an hour Friday, Saturday, Sunday between 12 and 8. Parking permits, when had created this report, we had approved 2,000 permits. There was over 120 coming in over the weekend, so there's more to be approved, but those are now coming in a steady stream and being approved and cleared off on a week-to-week basis. Working with the golf professionals up at the country club to institute a new online retail shop, which I hope to present for approval at the April 30th meeting. What this online shop, just to educate, is we're going to partner with a company that sells golf apparel and multi-company apparel. Our golf pro shop inside has limited vendors, and this will have access to a large number of vendors. There are 40, 50 different kinds of companies. And what happens is they can put the Village of Port Jefferson logo on the clothing apparel, and members can order directly through their website, have the item shipped right to their home. It doesn't have to be no in-shopping experience, all online. And then the village would receive a split of the profit of all of those sales to go directly back to the country club. So I think it's a win-win. It helps enhance the Village of Port Jefferson Country Club logo. It's an enhancement for members and just a convenience around the times where gifts and potentially, Christmas, all of those various types of days of the year.
Okay. Now you're going to join the marketing team too? I think you should.
To the benefit of the country club, yes, I'll do what is asked. Met with the Budget and Finance Committee, and we had some really good conversations about the budget presentation that everybody's going to see soon, and the budget. And we're going to be working on long-term plans, long-term projects, trying to really come up with a variety of different ways to help improve the finances of the village and how we can strategize to save money on expenses moving into the future. I know Trustee Ogrinski's touched on some of that, so I don't want to rehash anything. And unless there's questions, we'll end it with that.
I'm storing my questions for the public hearing, so just you
Okay.
wait.
I'm ready.
Okay, I think that concludes our reports, unless Attorney Moran has something he'd like to report on?
Trustee Yuginski's way too anxious, so I'll yield.
He's yielding. Okay.
I'm just so proud.
So do we have a motion to open, how do we, you want, yeah.
Motion to open the public hearing, please, at 7:41 regarding the fiscal year 2025-2026 Village of Port Jefferson tentative budget. May I have a motion?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we're going to go sit up here for the public hearing. All right, just before you get started, Treasurer Gafka, I just want to recognize our special consultant who is with us tonight, who has taken us, helped us every step of the way come to these financial, to this place of understanding of our finances. And without Charlene Cagle, I don't think we would be where we are today in a lot of areas, procurement, policy-driven aspects of our finances, consulting with our treasurer on things that I challenge him on, and I require a second opinion sometimes, just like, a medical second opinion kind of thing like that. But going to Charlene has always been Charlene, her experience, she's been in these meetings before. She led our procurement policy workshop for our employees. And so she's a very well-known entity in this industry, and so we're grateful that she's here tonight. And we have like a poll going, like under, over kind of thing, whether or not we're going to have to ask Charlene any questions tonight. We think that Stephen's going to be able to answer all of them, but we don't know for sure. But she's here as his backup if needed, so we're grateful for that. Okay, so Treasurer Gafka.
Thank you, again, thank you, Charlene, and thank you, Board. So I want to take you through the budget. This is a 4-month process, really, that starts in December, and we go through the department heads and multiple meetings. So I'm happy to present this presentation. So we're going to start with an overall picture of the total budget summary. So what we're looking at for the fiscal year for 25-26, we're looking at general fund, a total budget of $11,832,901. We're looking at a country club total budget of $3,678,200. What those represent, it's a 3% increase to the general fund and a 3% increase to the country club, which obviously will average out to a 3% increase for the total budget, which is just a little over $500,000. And we'll get into some of those details shortly. Of the general fund revenue, $11,832,901. The property tax increase for this year is $262,500. And just going to the way this looks as a picture, as you can see, with the property tax levy of $7.1 million represents 60% of all of the revenue that the village receives. Some of the other major pieces of revenue are your pilot. If you go to the bottom, the pilot utility gross receipts franchise tax brings in about a little over $700,000. A little farther up, parks and rec fees, it's another $700,000 that the village receives. Parking meter fees represent $990,000 in fees, and that was an increase after the March vote to change the rate structure. And we'll talk about some of the expenses tied with that increase for the next slide. We're looking at building, planning, zoning fees, a little over 400,000. And not to go through all of them, but we have another one that we'll touch on is interfund transfer of 379,000. And that'll be monies that are sent back from capital fund into general. Our expenses also per state law balance, which is 11,832,901. That total increase is 374,400. There's a variety of different reasons for that increase, which we'll get into. And this is what that pie chart looks like. These are broken out versus the categories the state has for your different revenue codes and appropriation codes. So general government support, that includes your board, the mayor, court, treasurer's office, clerk's office. That's your engineering consulting expenses, your insurance expense, which is a big piece of this particular $2.4 million number. Public safety, that'll be your building inspectors and your code enforcement department, as well as managed parking. Transportation, that's a little over $1.7 million in expenses this year budgeted. That's your highway, paving, sidewalks, and all of those related activities. In the budget, you'd find them under the 5,000 code series. Economic opportunity and assistance, it's a little tiny number, but it's an important one because that's what the programs for the aging that we do for seniors over at the Village Center. Our parks and rec budgets, 13% of all of our spending, that's a 1.5 million. Our home and community services, now that includes our building department, building planning, zoning, that includes street cleaning, all of those related activities are within that particular piece of the pie. And then as you'll see, the employee benefits, that is a really big piece of the pie. That's your taxes, that's your Social Security, Medicare taxes that the village has to pay, medical insurance, dental insurance, retirement. The next one you'll see is debt service. That's roughly 12% of the budget, 1.5 million. And that includes the capital leases. And interfund transfer, this 178,000, just to be specific, 150,000 of that is actually going to be a transfer to a parking capital reserve with the additional revenue that we've received. That's one of the recommendations that got voted on March 26th. And another 28,000 that helps go to fund the street sweeper that the village purchased a few years ago that was funded for 2.5 years, and this will fund year 3, and then I believe there's 2 more years after that. So again, just to reiterate, the country club spending increase 3.6% and total village 3.3. Now, you may ask, how much control over the budget, how much control over spending does the village have? What this pie chart shows you, the blue piece, the smaller piece, that's what we have control over. That is the piece that the village can control that's not already dictated via a contract or other types of liabilities that the village incurs through as they're listed here, your salaries, your employee benefits, your village insurance, debt service, and the bid disbursement. And to see the exact numbers, this slide shows you that the proposed fiscal year 25-26, 9.1 million of that 11 million budget, the village doesn't have control over. And that's where you see the large part of that $374,000 increase that I mentioned before. 366,000 of that is related to all of those particular expenses. The things that the village does have control over is roughly a little over $2.6 million in spending, and we only increased that spending by $8,000. So that is showing extraordinarily conservative budgeting with our expenses. It's really trying to rein in and minimize the tax increase and impact on residents that all of these services are for. All of these, maintaining this budget this way, the intention is to continue to give all of the services everybody's used to, but to do it in a responsible way without any wasteful spending. some of the budget challenges, just to get into this, we had just under a $460,000 proposed increase to our village insurances this year. This is not unique. We're not the only municipality dealing with this particular challenge. The village is investigating every possible avenue to reduce this cost. But part of my job is to make sure that we budget for a worst case scenario. And this is what was given to us as our worst case scenario. But this represents an 80 to 100% increase in our village insurance rates. And it's just the North Shore of Long Island and out in Suffolk County is just it's hard to get good insurance. The general fund increase was $380,000 from what we paid in this fiscal year 2025, and a $79,000 increase related to the Country Club Fund. The village also had an assessment reduction village-wide of $430,000. That's primarily related to the LIPA glide path agreement, which reduced those three properties by $498,000, which kind of shows you that there were some other properties within the village that their assessments went up a little bit. But the reason this is important is that the tax rate that gets derived on all of your tax bills, the entire village assessment comes into play with that particular calculation. So a reduction in that calculation involves an increase in your tax rate. The LIPA glide path tax reduction was $118,000. This continues the year-over-year trend of continuing to reduce how much they're allowed to pay the village. And lastly, addressing all of the rising costs that all of the residents and everybody in this room has experienced over the last few years, while keeping a zero-based budget and maintaining a minimal tax increase and staying within the tax cap. I want to talk about some of our budget process initiatives. This is what we're doing to try and maintain those goals and meet those goals with this budget process. So we've talked about this over the last year, is exploring new ways to bring in village revenue. Some of that is with village center room rental rates. Earlier this evening, Andy, our building and planning director, talked about potential other rates with the building and planning department. So we're looking at a variety of different avenues to bring in additional revenue. We're going to be using grant reimbursements to pay down capital project debt. So the village received $897,000 from FEMA for the recharge basin, and we're going to the intention of borrowing money via a BAN, which is a bond anticipation note, short term, is to use the grant proceeds we receive and pay down that debt to minimize the debt service for future years. We're developing a parking capital infrastructure plan that goes in line with that interfund transfer of $150,000 to go into a capital project expense line item so that we can start working with the parking committee and the board of trustees to develop, and the budget and finance committee, a long-term capital plan for parking with a variety of different infrastructure projects that are needed so that we can fund this through parking rates and not have to go out for long-term borrowing as a last resort. We're going to reallocate unspent capital project monies to alleviate the tax burden and offset debt service. Specifically, the village 5 years ago went out to borrow money for a number of different projects, one of which was the digitalization of village records that never actually materialized. That particular project debt gets paid off in October, and it represents $230,000 that we're going to send back to the general fund to offset any potential tax increase and keep that tax increase at a minimum. And number one is do not pierce the tax cap, is to use what the resources that the state provided to us and to make sure that when we inputted our numbers that we were not piercing the tax cap, regardless of any vote to override to give ourselves that emergency. The goal of this budget is to maintain that state number for the total levy and to make sure we don't go past it. These are our operational initiatives. This is what we're doing on a day-to-day basis constantly with trying to maintain the village finances. We have ongoing consultation with the village department leadership to address their needs, anticipate their future expenses, consultation with the Commissioner of Finance Trustee Ugrinsky and the Budget and Finance Committee to review all of our budgeting practices and make recommendations for improvement. The ongoing commitment of this board to fiscal transparency through budget amendments and the budget transfer process, strict adherence to the village procurement policy. Why that's important is that will keep expenses at a minimum and it'll prevent overspending your budget. And also departmental budget responsibility and oversight. What kind of letting the departments have more control over the procurement so that they can see in real time what they're spending and getting their purchase orders and procurement done so that they have a better control and better understanding of their own finances within their department. This slide this is part of what is in the budget. This kind of shows you the calculation and where what the tax pieces are. So you see our appropriations at the top, our total revenues that do not come from taxes, which are $4.7 million, our appropriations from property taxes, which are $6,998,000, and $109,000 collected for the bid levy. So our total tax levy is $7.107 million. Our prior year levy was $6,845,000. So this represented a $262,500 increase in the property tax levy, which is right at what the state allows, which we'll get to in the following slide. So this is your tax cap formula. So this comes straight from the state website. This tells you exactly how you're supposed to input your tax cap. And while we all say it's the 2% tax cap, the 2% tax cap is a misnomer because there are other factors that get involved. You have a growth factor for your entire tax base. You have pilot payments, and all of that gets built in. So what you do is you take your prior year tax levy, you multiply that by what the state says your growth factor is for your entire tax base. Last year, just for instance, last year Port Jefferson's growth factor was 8%. This year it was 0.3%. So it varies on a year-to-year basis, and it jumps depending on what your area of your municipality is compared to surrounding areas. You add in what pilots you received for the year, you multiply that number by 1.02%, and then you subtract out what your new pilots that you're going to get are, and that tells you, and then any available carryover from the previous year. What the state allows is that if you have a certain amount of a tax levy limit, if you don't take everything that they give you in that 1 year, you leave some potential tax raises on the table, you can carry forward a very small percentage of that to the following year and still stay in compliance with the tax levy limit. This is actually taken right from the New York State's Office of the State Comptroller's website that shows the village calculation. This gets included in with the budget, and this shows you those exact numbers. What our pilots were that we had received in this year, what we're expecting next year, and what our actual levy limit is, which is $7.107 million. So as you'll see, going back to this slide, what we're proposing is taking exactly what the state's allowing us and not going past it, and staying right at that number. The effect on the tax rate, if you look to the right of this slide, we're going to have a $40.466 per 100 of assessed valuation. That's an increase of $3.1 per 100 of assessment. So what does that mean for our average resident? Well, the average resident will see roughly a $120 increase on their tax bill with this particular tax rate. The average commercial valuation will see a $229 increase. And before I move on to the country club, does any questions or anybody want to stop me or just continue on? All right, we'll just continue. The country club budget highlights. Country club operation line items are funded entirely from membership and usage fees. Our total anticipated revenues, $3.678 million, of which $2,050,000 is what we're budgeting to receive from membership fees. Our total anticipated expenses for a flat budget, $3,678,200. Some of our process impacts up at the Country Club was to add one additional full-time staff member for the maintenance and the pro shop, plan for level membership. Currently, the village over the last couple of years has had 550 memberships billed out. We're planning to have that same level of commitment and membership. The capital debt and lease payments are covered with the assessment fees. This goes back to a resolution the board passed in December. So our anticipated assessment collection is $367,000, and our capital debt and lease payments are $367,000. Any over collection of assessment will be appropriated to capital project expenses and moved out. Our operational initiatives up at the Country Club is that membership services reporting line have shifted to the treasurer's office. We're training Country Club staff on procurement policy and process implementation. And just to let everybody in, they are extraordinarily receptive to this. They're excited about having the ability to do their own POs and have access to the software and budgetary information. I showed the maintenance superintendent one time how to process a purchase requisition, and I come back every morning and I have at least 3 or 4 waiting for me. So it only took one time. So it's exciting. He's very happy about it, and I look forward to training the rest of the Country Club staff on that process. And then lastly, it's a transition to enterprise fund accounting. So there's going to be some changes in our general ledger with the Country Club and coming up in the next year. Just some asset changes and depreciation, some background stuff. It won't have an effect on operations, but it will require a slightly different financial reporting. And just so as a visual, similar to the general fund, membership fees make up 56% of all the revenue that comes in for the Country Club. The assessment's 10% at $367,000. And then you have big ticket items, guest fees, $268,000, cart fees, $422,000. We're expecting $180,000 in booked outings. The word on the street is potentially that could be going even higher. We could exceed that particular projection, but so I'm excited about those possibilities. We have pro shop retail sales, $139,000, and then a couple smaller ticket items. There's interest income through their investment account of $40,000, and cell tower rent for the cell tower that's over there at the Country Club is $40,000, and then a bunch of various miscellaneous fees, another $171,000. How does their expenses break out? As you see, the maintenance facility represents 34% of their expenses. The pro shop operations is 27%. The utilities and miscellaneous operations is just under $100,000, 2%. Employee benefits make up 20%. And their capital debt and service and leases is 10%, $367,000. And operational support, which is a variety of different other items, including their insurance, that's 8%, $275,000. And that's the end of the presentation. I'll open it up for questions and comments.
So the board will have questions first, and then we'll open it up for public questions, I guess. I just want to say, Stephen, thank you. I think that was one of the best presentations I've seen in a long time, although I've only seen 2. But it was a very good presentation, so thorough, and I think you answered a lot of questions before they even got a chance to be asked. So appreciate the amount of time, thought. Again, I'll thank Charlene Cagle for helping you work through it, and our clerk also helped get through this process, not to mention our Commissioner of Finance and the Budget and Finance Committee. So there's a lot of gratitude all around. And that too, I'll echo what Trustee Ugrinsky said earlier about the staff. They sat through, they worked through their budgets with you to help you put this together. You took a lot of guff from them, but you gave them a lot of guff too. So easy come, easy go. But I think what came out of this, from my perspective, is a really tight, effective budget and kept promises of not to pierce the tax cap, which was huge, big commitment of mine. And so gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I don't have a question. I just want to echo the mayor's sentiments. I mean, I know firsthand what it's like to put together a budget like this, and you did a great job. Great presentation. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Not only was it very good, but it was short. It was well done, very well done.
Thank you, Trustee.
I personally could have lasted another 10 minutes easily.
I'm not
but-
sure anybody else could, though. I talk and sometimes eyes glaze over, so I had to get through it.
Yeah, I just think, I just think that we are, in a situation where 2 years later, we were talking about fiscal responsibility all the way along, and we are really collectively in a position where we understand what we're managing. We have the appropriate data from which to make decisions, and we can start really planning out into the future. So, but great work.
Thank you.
One thing you didn't say, which was reflective of that, right? Something that we're looking forward to in the future is building a fund balance? What was?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
Well, the entire goal of this is to build our cash reserves back up and our fund balance back up. That is the purpose of conservative budgeting. And you conservatively budget not only your expenses, but you try and do your revenues to the best of your ability as well. Because when you overshoot the moon and you don't bring that money in, that counts against you towards your fund balance, especially if you meet your expense needs. So you go in conservatively to help build that up. And as we do that and we replenish what's owed to the capital fund and we build up our cash and fund balance in general, we'll be able to use that to get some of these capital projects done without having to borrow money every single time we need to do something. So that is the ultimate goal, and to really the fiscal health of the village and its budget.
Okay. Trustee Hill, anything?
No, I'll just say thank you for all your hard work on this, and it was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, now we can open up to public comment if anyone has questions about the budget from who's here from the public. Is that? Marilyn? Come on up to the microphone, please, and we have a transcriptionist here, so stenographer, so if you can say your name and your address.
Marilyn Ramirez Damasco, 601 Scraggy Hill Road, Port Jefferson, New York. I do have a question regarding the discretionary portion of the budget. Has that already been appropriated for particular projects?
No, what that spending is, it's the various different departments throughout the village. For instance, equipment and supplies for the treasurer's office, equipment and supplies for the clerk's office. None of this is official until the board adopts the budget at the end of April. However, it's basically gives you your operational expenses for all the various departments throughout the year. Anything that they might need that you don't necessarily have an exact number for ahead of time, but it's not for a specific project.
No, first. Okay, so if we wanted to put in for a specific project, we would go to that particular committee and request it, or another means of, specifically part of the walkability. We wanted to know if perhaps with the discretionary, if that could be entertained at all. We're looking at the Haydick engineering, the sidewalks, curbs, etc. I was just wondering, what is the feasibility of appropriating something like that?
I would defer to the board on those types of decision-making processes.
Well, there are different and various buckets that could address some of those requests.
Okay,
And what I would do is go to the Conservation Advisory Council and work with them, right? Would that be the right?
Between that and the safety committee, yeah.
Yeah, and just, let your your requests and but I think we talked about in work session that we would look at the Hayduck walkability study and see what could be implemented, and then,
okay.
But again, resident feedback is welcome. So, yes.
All right.
Marilyn, there's
I'm
also
hopeful.
another avenue for funding, right? So if we can get very specific and maybe leverage our grants writer, maybe we can identify some funding that would help pay for some of these things, whether it's a safety issue or,
We are working on that as well.
Perfect.
Yes, so definitely, I will
Yeah.
keep you posted on that. Thank you so much for considering it. Thanks.
Any other questions from the public? Hearing none?
May we have a motion, please, to close the public comment portion of the fiscal year 2025-2026 Village of Port Jefferson tentative budget hearing at 8:15 PM.
Motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer.
And with that, we have a motion to close the fiscal year 2025-2026 Village of Port Jefferson tentative budget hearing, also at 8:15. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yep.
Motion to close the April 9th, 2025 work session meeting of the Board of Trustees at 8:15 PM. May I have a motion?
Motion?
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries.
Thank
Thank you.